Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roofing Contractor, Walls and Ceilings, and Building Enclosure. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are listening on podcast or watching on video. It's always a great week when I get an opportunity to talk with Trent Cotney, the CEO of Cotney Attorneys and Consultants, because let's face it, there is never a shortage of legal issues that pertain to all the contractors' businesses out there that we just have to talk about. So, Trent, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jill, it's always a pleasure. And, kudos to you guys. Through Roofing Contractor and Walls and Ceilings are just really getting the news out to people. I watch your social media, I listen to the podcasts, and I got to tell you, it's been great because you guys have really been on top of things. So pleasure to be here. I always look forward to talking to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Trent. And first and foremost, we've got some, everything since COVID, so much had shut down, and all these trade shows have just been moved to that were in earlier in the year, now like in August and September and October, and there's some big things coming up. It looks like you're speaking at FRSA, and of course, where you've got you speaking at Best of Success, but then also at IRE. But what are you going to be speaking about? What's the next? When's your next speaking engagement? What's coming up?
So the next one up is going to be at FRSA, and we've got a full course list. Our team is going to be doing everything from licensing to talking about, I think I'm speaking on contract provisions, and I'm going to throw in some stuff specifically about the material shortages issue that we've got going on right now. We've got some immigration and employment talks as well. So looking forward to getting back out there and being able to interact with an audience. I've grown accustomed and enjoy the talking via Zoom, but it's nice to get that instant feedback so you know whether or not you're on point. So
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, as we dive in, I mean, commercial contractors remain upbeat despite what's been described as a recession in that sector. But why and what are you hearing from the commercial market right now?
So the demand is still there, and that's the thing that I want to hit home to the listeners, and they know this. The demand is there, but the problem is before this crisis of material shortages, there wasn't enough labor to begin with. So when you've got a labor problem and now a materials problem, it's starting to impact the bottom line. Okay, and this is not just in the contractor sector. This is across all boards. So I've had plenty of conversations with manufacturers that have more demand than they could ever keep up with, but they can't get anything out the door because they don't have the source material to build the end product. So it's what I anticipate, Jill, is I think summer, contractors will still be doing work. They'll still be working through existing backlog, what they've got going on. I think the real issue is really going to start hitting around fall, where they have projects that could be done, but they just don't have materials or the labor or the capability to do it. And what I'm concerned about is that the longer this crisis goes on, the more that we're going to see an attrition, even greater attrition in workforce, as well as some of these projects that are outstanding being canceled, suspended, moved, because you just can't get the work done. So it's a very unique situation that we're experiencing right now. Our fingers are crossed that commercial continues to remain strong. I do see clouds on the horizon. I've been saying that for a while now, and I think to a certain extent we've been kicking the can. But I think a lot of the things that I'm seeing may come to fruition in third or fourth quarter of this year.
Yeah, it looks like I think you got an article that you've written for us that's up on roofing contractor. So thank you so much for that. That's something else that contractors can dive into if they need to. The IRS recently issued some FAQs about tax credits for sick and family leave. Does this help or confuse the matter? Because I was looking at it.
So and okay, legal hat off, just from a layperson standpoint, navigating taxes is like a full-time job. Like it is, especially if you're a business owner, because there are so many things that are out there that you've got to figure out. Now, this, for our listeners, if you are doing work in multiple states, and that even complicates things further, because you got state tax, you got local taxes, you got all these taxes you got to worry about. So to answer your question, Jill, I think there was some clarification there. There was some extension on some of the employee retention credits for, COVID-19, where you can still take advantage of it through the end of this year. But you really got to work with your tax professionals, work with your HR staff to make sure that you are taking advantage of it. I've had my accountant on speed dial just because there are so many questions and issues that as a small business owner, nobody told me about Form 5500 and I've got to file it for benefits. I've done it for years and years and years, but when I remember starting out, somebody said, "Oh, you need to do Form 5500." I said, "Yeah," and I shook my head and then immediately started looking up for, okay, what is that? And it deals with
Yeah.
benefits and 401k stuff, that kind of stuff. So it's what you don't know that hurts you. So what I really recommend is to navigate all this stuff. You got to get a really good accountant. I always say any roofing contractor out there, you need, good insurance agent, good accountant, good lawyer. That's going to help you navigate it.
Yeah, great advice. Well, let's forget about taxes for a minute and talk about the storms, because there are, on top of the issues and just the crisis with the supply chain. I mean, there's storms out there everywhere. You just said that you're in the middle of a storm right now down there in Florida. But as storm season continues, I mean, what are you hearing from contractors, and how are they navigating that on top of the supply chain?
Yeah. So as we speak right now, there is a huge storm just right on top of us. I mean, it's pounding the building. I can hear it. So we've already had some storms that have come through that have caused some damage. We saw some recently with that tropical disturbance. We anticipate that there's going to be more. And anytime there's a significant storm, it creates a lot of work, but it also prevents the contractors from going out there and doing the work that needs to be done when it's constantly raining. So one of the issues that we face here in Florida all the time, I know Louisiana has a similar issue in some parts of Texas and the South, where it rains almost every single day during the summer. And when that happens, you just can't get the work done. So what roofing contractors are having to do is they're having to either work very, very early in the morning and knock out as much as they can. One of the things that I always recommend during storm season is avoid a full tear off. Don't do that because you're exposing the entire roof to a potential storm. I don't care how well you blue roof or tarp, it could potentially create some liability. So what I recommend is piece by piece to the extent that you can do it, half the roof, quarter of the roof, whatever you think your crew can get done before those storms come. And I think I've joked around with you before, Jill. I don't rely on the weather. I just ask a roofer what the weather's going to be, and
Yeah.
I know it's going to be accurate. So.
No, absolutely. Well, so should contractors get ready for insurers to be slow paying? I mean, nobody knows that better than the Bloom family, but but you got slow pay, increasing deductibles. I mean, and pushing back on claims it seems like it's like a perfect storm of all these things kind of coming together at the same time. What should contractors do? Because it's a lot to prepare for.
Yeah, the insurance industry has been very aggressive against roofing contractors lately. Recently, we just got reports. I think, I'd reported to Roofing Contractor Magazine about Senate Bill 76 that was passed here in Florida. And some of the information that the insurance industry has been putting out on that has been inaccurate. And one of the things that we're starting to see is that when a homeowner tenders a claim to an insurance company, some of the first few questions that the insurance company are asking, okay, well, how did you know to tender it to us? What contractor are you working with? What documents did they give you? What did they tell you to do? And what they're trying, there's almost an antagonistic, aggressive type approach to a lot of the contracting force out there. So one of the things that I really try to hit home to our listeners, especially those that are engaged in the storm industry, is having good relationships with insurers is, it doesn't always have to be antagonistic. The last thing that you want to do is be blacklisted or end up on some kind of regulatory agency's radar. You really have to work through this process. There's definitely some pent up antagonism between the insurance industry and roofing contractors. And I anticipate that this storm season is not going to be an exception.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to business insurance, though, for contractors, what are contractors saying about this, and even like overhead concerns?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we're starting to see is increased insurance costs on projects, especially commercial general liability, because of delays that are related to these material shortages. So a lot of times you're just focused on the out-of-pocket cost, but you don't realize that there is, job site overhead, there is home office overhead, and these CGL policies, the longer that you're on projects, the more that you might have to pay. So that's been a big issue. One of the things that I want to mention on insurance, Jill, for all our listeners, is definitely talk to your agent about cyber insurance. We have seen a huge uptick in cyber crime. And let me tell you what it looks like. We've had ransomware calls where your entire system is hijacked. We have had a ton of wire fraud, okay, where someone is smart enough to be in the background, figures out when you're communicating as soon as, and it looks seamless. So a customer gets it and says, "Hey, I need a wire." They send the money and the money's gone. Okay. And then you're in trouble. So there's those types of things. There's phishing, where someone will get access to your information and send out emails. So I definitely recommend that you work on your processes and procedures there, but also look into cyber insurance, because you never know. We live in a world now where it's amplified. I'm seeing more and more of it, especially since COVID-19 and the work from home policies that were throughout a lot of the roofing contractors that we work with. So definitely a big increase there. I think that one of the things that I would do between now and before the hurricanes really get here is have a sit down with your agent. Okay, have a sit down with your agent and talk about what your CGL policy currently looks like. Not only what the coverages are, but what the exclusions are. Okay, because you want to make sure that you're properly protected in the event that you've got work in progress, or that you've got, a storm coming through and you've got rooftop materials or things like that. Definitely the time to be proactive rather than reactive.
Oh, well, for sure. And I'm so glad you brought up cybersecurity, because we just did a video with Bill Collins, who's been a long time in the roofing industry, and he just got his master's in cybersecurity. So we've got some things coming up on that, Trent, that we'll be having a lot more questions. But it made us realize yesterday when we did this video with him, everybody that is listening to this, if you haven't watched that video as well, it's another good one. But change your passwords. They can't be eight. He was like, do not have 8-letter password, eight character passwords. It was pretty scary. So there's a lot to go. There's a lot going on there.
It is. And, no one is bulletproof, as we've seen with a lot of the real high profile, hacking incidents that have happened, with the pipeline and other things. But, you do have to engage in diligence. You need to, just like you have toolbox talks for safety, you need the same exact thing for cybersecurity, because all it takes is one administrative assistant or something to click on something and you're in trouble.
Yes. And sometimes they don't know it for multiple months afterwards, because it just sits there and collects data, which is scary. So yes, great advice. Great advice, Trent. Well, switching gears for a second, just to, we talked ad nauseum about COVID, but right now, one of the things you and I were mentioning before we even got on was the Delta variant, and that there's some concerns going on there. Trent, what are you feeling, and what are you telling contractors to stay vigilant about?
So this is very interesting, Jill, and everyone has kind of breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief now that the vaccines are out and a lot of the mask restrictions have gone down, and people are starting to travel again, and we're going to shows, and there's all this stuff, which is great to get back to some kind of normalcy. But what has always been very interesting about COVID-19 was its ability to adapt and transform quickly. So if you look at the history of the variants, with Delta being the most recent that I'm aware of, there's probably others out there, but that variant is so much more powerful than the previous variant, is so much more capable of causing harm and spreading quicker. And what we've already seen is that spread like wildfire through India and through a lot of Europe. I know the UK is talking about having some additional shutdowns as a result of that. We were talking to some of our friends over in Germany. They're very concerned about it, and I think as it continues to spread, it is here in the United States. What I am seeing and what I've heard from the statistics is most of the people that are really suffering from it or being hospitalized, a high percentage of it is from those who are not vaccinated. So those that are vaccinated are still getting sick or experiencing some symptoms. They're just not getting it as bad as those that aren't. So what I am concerned about is that if it's not this variant, it may be another variant that ends up in a situation where we do have to take some more precautions. So what I would recommend is stay vigilant. We're not out of the woods yet, and I plan on, going to these shows, enjoying myself, but at the same time, that sanitizer is going to be there.
Yeah.
This is not, 2018 anymore. This is going to be, I'm shaking somebody's hand, I'm sanitizing right after. So I do think that once winter comes around, we're going to see, whether it's Delta or Epsilon or whatever is next, we're going to see something that's going to cause us some problems. And I think what it's going to be interesting to see is how these governments, these state governments and the federal government responds to that. So stay vigilant, stay tuned. We're not out of the woods yet.
Got it. Well, what else is making your phone ring this week?
Jill, it's still dominated by the material shortages and material price increase issue. It's kind of morphed a little bit now, because at first it was about identifying what the problems were and about how to deal with them. Now it's been more about trying to fend off delay claims and how to navigate that successfully. So one of the things that we've really worked on, both from a legal side and a consulting side, is to work with contractors on how to mitigate the delays caused by increased lead times. And some of that has been looking at how their project is phased out, or what does the critical path look like for this project, and figuring out if there is a way to work with the general contractor or with the owner to possibly rephase some work to help eliminate some of the delay. Okay. And it's requiring a lot of creativity. I mean, this is not a cookie cutter response. Every single project is unique. So I'll give you a great example. This is just this week. This is a federal project, and we are looking at roughly a $1.2 million increase in price and probably about an 8-month delay. Okay.
Wow.
And it is, at first, I can tell you, everybody started pointing fingers at each other. But now everyone's kind of come to the realization that if they don't work together, that it could be even more than that. And it could be 2 years before they get what they need.
Oh my gosh.
So it's requiring a lot of reaching across the aisle, figuring out how to sort of thread that needle and navigate these delays in a way that makes sense. But definitely still a hot button issue. Other than that, I'd say OSHA's picked up a lot of safety and OSHA related claims. I was reading an article that you guys just posted on a fatality that occurred. I forgot where it was it Missouri or somewhere? But we are definitely seeing an uptick and expect to continue to see that through summer of investigations and citations that are issued by OSHA and the state equivalents.
Yeah, everyone's got to stay vigilant and stay safe. Bottom line, that's what we always want to make sure of. But
right.
Trent, it's always great to talk to you. We always appreciate your insight. If anybody has any questions for Trent, if you need to contact him, you can reach them out at cotneycl.com. And if you need to reach us, feel free to do that at roofingcontractor.com, wconline.com, or buildingenclosureonline.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters. We've got an incredible new platform for our e-magazines. Register for our website so you can always stay up to date when we post all the interviews with Trent and other great individuals in the industry. And please stay safe and healthy. We look forward to seeing you next time.